Page 75, Fun with Reading, working on a special project today. We had some busy days in school after our visit with Professor Tuesday as our class was getting ready for the school play. I didn't get a chance to talk with Tamika about our project. On Saturday, she called. Part of me didn't want to talk to her. I was sure she was going to tell me she either didn't want to or wasn't going to help with the project. When I picked up the phone, my friend's voice was full of excitement. Did you know that George DeBaptiste moved from Madison, Indiana to Detroit, Michigan? He owned a boat that was used to ship escaped slaves to Canada, where my family came from, Tamika said. I was trying to take notes for our report. She talked so fast it was hard to keep track of everything she was saying. At first, I didn't want to read this book the professor gave us, but I learned a lot of stuff from it. George DeBaptiste did all kinds of cool things. He even led black soldiers during the Civil War and worked with President Henry Harrison, a real president of the U.S. I even seen a picture of him in a book. Slow down, Tamika, I said. I can't write that fast. Sorry, she said, but I'm really getting into learning about George DeBaptiste. He may have even helped my family escape to freedom a long time ago. I thought you didn't like to read, I said. I was worried you wouldn't want to work on this project. Well, Tamika answered, my dad started reading the book to me one night. After a few chapters, I wanted to learn more, so I've been reading it on my own. I also really like to read it to my mom and dad. Maybe I've changed my mind a little bit about reading. Good for you, I said. I've been reading about George DeBaptiste, too. Did you find out anything about the wagon or the town of Madison, Indiana? Tamika asked. I did. Mr. DeBaptiste was a barber in Madison, but he also owned a wagon that was used for making deliveries around town, I answered. This wagon was specially made so that it would look like it was badly broken. Why would anybody want a wagon that only looked broken? Tamika asked. That's the cool part about it, I replied. When Mr. DeBaptiste would get word that a group of escaped slaves needed help, he would break the wagon. With the help of a local blacksmith, the wagon and his horses would be locked up in a stable, just like we saw with the professor. Just before the runaways would arrive, the wagon would be repaired and carpet would be put on the horses' hooves. Escaped slaves would be carried on the wagon as it moved quietly through the night to the next stop on the Underground Railroad. The next day, the wagon would be repaired and the horses would no longer have carpet on their hooves. Wow, Tamika said, that's why he wanted to have a wagon that looked broken. He had it made that way so people wouldn't think he was helping slaves escape. Right, I said. Even though George DeBaptiste was very crafty, many people suspected him of helping slaves. There was even a $1,000 reward for his arrest. That was a whole lot of money back in those days. I know, said Tamika, that's one of the big reasons he moved to Detroit. Many people from Kentucky wanted him arrested or killed. Have you learned anything about the town of Madison, Indiana? That was a part of the project, too. I found some stuff out about it, Tamika answered. Like what? Well, Tamika began, I learned that free African Americans settled in what is known as the Georgetown District of Madison in the 1800s. Many of them are very active in the Underground Railroad. One man who helped slaves escape was a blacksmith. Tamika hesitated for a moment before continuing. I wonder if that was the man who went into the barn to fix the wagon and put carpet on the horses' hooves. Could be, I said. What else did you find out about Madison, Indiana? Well, Tamika began, the Georgetown District in Madison is about 5 blocks away from the Ohio River, so that made it a perfect place to help hide runaways. I read about the Ohio River, too, I added. Slaves who escaped used the river to cross from southern slave states into the north. Several different cities along the Ohio helped runaways, like Cincinnati and Ripley, Ohio, Madison and Evansville, Indiana, and lots of other places. I even found out that many slaves crossed the river in winter time because in some years the river froze solid enough to cross it on foot. One book the professor gave us said that some slaves crossed the Ohio River on steamboats and rowboats, I added. People who fought against slavery even placed small boats along the banks of the river on the Kentucky side so that slaves could use them to escape. That was really smart, Tamika said. What about you, Jessie? Did you find any other information about Madison? I got on the computer with my mom and found some sites about Madison, Indiana, I answered, but you can't always trust things that are posted on the internet. So I'm going to the library tomorrow to see if I can find more information about the town. What time are you going? Tamika asked. Maybe I can meet you there. We can work on a report together. Do you think we can have it done in time to see the professor on Tuesday? I hope so, I said. We agreed to meet at the library the next day. After I hung up, I thought about my friend Tamika. She'd never liked reading and writing very much in the past. Before long, I'd find out more about Tamika that would surprise me.